Hello everyone, I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Alexandra. I'm managing my own firm, Derizy Law. So the purpose of today's video is just to answer some questions that you might have vis-a-vis immigration and COVID-19. There have been a lot of changes recently. Some people are left in limbo. And I got a lot of questions from individuals asking me about their particular situations. And of course, whenever one of these events happen, unfortunately, there are scammers out there. So the best way to avoid getting scammed is to remain informed. So today I'm going to be sharing some legal information with you. I want to stress that this information is not meant to be taken as legal advice. It's just legal information. The difference between legal information and legal advice is that legal advice I would take the facts of your case and give you advice based on the facts of your particular case. Whereas legal information is information that you could find on any website, legal information or immigration's website, you could find the information there. And it's not applied to the facts of your own case or situation. So please stay informed. At the end of this video, I'm going to drop some links to various government websites, official websites, and you can check the information for yourself. I just want to take the time to say that all the information that I'm sharing, you can find it on the Government of Canada's website. You go on canada.ca, very simple. It's an official website. All the websites that say Government of Canada, those are official websites. Those are websites that you should be getting your information from. That being said, beware of scammers, beware of information. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, chances are that it is too good to be true and it's a scam. Whenever you're being asked money up front, banking information up front, you're being asked credit card information and you've not even given any information about your situation, and you're being asked for an enormous sum of money up front, I would be aware of those situations. Normally for a consultation, there's a small fee asked up front, and then they listen to your situation and give you advice based on that. And of course, by advice, I'm talking about lawyers giving advice to clients. But beware of those things you see popping up, especially on WhatsApp. I came across recently a website. Someone asked me if it was legitimate. It's basically a link to a website, and it's on WhatsApp, and there's a bunch of Canadian flags and globes in the title, so red flag right away. And it says, oh, the Government of Canada is accepting 5,000 people, apply now. So when you click on the link, I clicked on the link, and you see the number of applications going down by the second, and that's to induce stress in the person who wants to apply or wants their family member to apply. And they say, we're only taking the first 5,000 applicants, apply to Canada now, jobs in Canada, Canada needs employees. So you'll see stuff like that. Because of COVID-19, we need people to work in grocery stores, manufacturers, we need people to make masks. That is simply not true. So today I want to talk about the changes in immigration with regards to COVID-19. Particularly, I want to be discussing the travel ban first and foremost with you. Then I'll be moving on to those with refugee claims, refugee hearings. I'm going to be talking to those who have citizenship applications in. I'm going to be talking to those who have done a permanent residency application, to those who are doing a TRP, temporary resident permit, and I'll be addressing student visas and tourist visas. So as you must know by now, there has been a travel ban for all of Canada. This limits the ability to travel to and from Canada. So right now, Canadian citizens and permanent residents have been called to come back to Canada if they were outside of Canada. This was going on towards the last 2 weeks of March, where people were being urged to come home. That means that anyone who's not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident would be subject to a travel ban. So foreign nationals are prohibited from entering Canada from any other foreign jurisdiction except from the United States. So travel by air, forget it. If you're from another country, you would not be able to enter the United States unless you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Regardless of the fact that you are a permanent resident or Canadian citizen, if you are manifesting symptoms of COVID-19, you would not be able to get on a flight and come to Canada. So anyone exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 will not be able to embark on a flight to Canada. And that applies to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. All foreign nationals cannot travel by air to Canada. Now, border crossings are still possible from those entering from the United States of America. Again, border crossing, so by land, it's still possible to enter into Canada from the US, but it has to be for essential travel. So they have listed categories of people that can come through the border, and if it's not part of those exceptions to the travel ban, a foreign national would not be permitted to enter. So some of the examples for exemptions for the travel ban, there's immediate family members of a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, a person who is authorized in writing by a consulate officer of the Government of Canada would be able to enter into Canada crossing at the US border. A person who is exempt from the requirement to obtain a TRP, a temporary resident permit. A protected person who was traveling abroad when all this happened. So think of those with travel documents. They would be able to come back into Canada through the border. So anyone that the Chief Public Health Officer appoints under the Public Health Agency of Canada Act would be able to come in. Anyone who's providing an essential service to Canada would be able to enter through the border, and a person who's declared someone of national interest. So if those things don't ring a bell right away with you, or your family members who are saying, I heard there's a program, I could come through the United States. If it's not one of those exemptions to the ban, they wouldn't be able to enter in through the United States. So it's really important to be informed, because there's all kinds of information out there saying there's an exception here, there's an exception there. Again, canada.ca, you'll go under immigration, IRCC, immigration refugee. So you'll go under the IRCC's website, and then you'll find the list of people exempt under the travel ban. So the foreign nationals that can come in. Another thing I wanted to mention is that there have been some changes to people who have pending applications in with Immigration Refugee Citizenship Canada, IRCC. There's a 90-day extension that has been granted to those who were in the middle of an application and IRCC requested additional information from you. So if they requested some kind of clarification, some kind of proof, you were asked to go get a test, you were asked to go get do your biometrics, all those things. There's the 90-day extension that's been granted by IRCC. If they have requested additional information from you, then that's where that 90-day extension comes in. It only applies to those who are in the midst of an application and who have been asked for additional information by IRCC. So I do want to mention that all citizenship hearings, tests that were to be conducted in person have been canceled. Last week, I was surprised but very happy to see that there was a virtual swearing-in ceremony that was done for citizens to become Canadian citizens. So you will be redirected and they'll let you know how they will proceed for your swearing-in ceremony. So if you had a date, right now it's canceled. There's nothing that's going to be happening in person. So all the temporary residents in Canada, I'm speaking now about temporary residents who are inside of Canada right now. If you're unable to leave Canada, which you might very well be unable to leave Canada, you must apply for an extension of your status. So if your status is going to expire soon, you do have to apply for an extension of status. It's not an automatic thing. You still have to pay the fees. So you're going to go on the website, you're going to apply for an extension of status. If you are a temporary resident and you already applied for an extension of status, what's going to happen to you is then you'll benefit for something that's called implied status. It means it's implied that you have the status of a temporary resident until you get a decision saying otherwise. Or of course, if you get a decision granting your extension, then you're fine. But you need to still apply for it or still receive something in writing as to your status. Now, if you are in Canada and you are a temporary resident and that status has expired, let's say that it was expiring in March or at the end of March, and because of everything going on with COVID-19, you weren't sure what to do. If it has expired, then you must apply for restoration of status. So you're going to apply for your status to be restored. And again, you must pay all fees. The fees have not been waived because of COVID-19. So as you would in any other circumstance where you're required an extension or a restoration of status, you're going to be doing the application online and you're going to pay the associated fees. So we've covered citizens who were waiting for a test or waiting for the ceremony. We've covered those who have done temporary residents, who have temporary resident status. We've also covered those who were in the middle of an application and extra information was requested. So like I've told you, you have a 90-day extension for that. So let's talk about something that's dear to my heart: refugees, refugee claimants. My background is as a refugee lawyer, so that is my passion. And if I hate any kind of scam, it's scams towards refugees. Scammers usually tend to go for the more vulnerable, people who are stressed, making life-changing decisions, and who don't have the time to do all this research are being targeted. So beware of any program, special program, and they'll specify the country. Canada has a special program for XYZ country. No. Refugees, pay attention to this part. If you're a refugee claimant and you have not yet entered Canada, unfortunately, you will be denied crossing at the U.S. border. So refugee claimants will not be permitted to enter Canada. They will be turned away at the border. Anyone who is telling you something different is scamming you. It is not true or is simply misinformed, unfortunately. Prior to COVID-19, refugee claimants were doing their claims at authorized borders and were doing irregular crossings at non-authorized borders. This is not true right now. If you're a refugee, you will not be permitted to enter at the border. You will be turned away at the border back into the U.S. All refugees who would normally have benefited from the Third Safe Country Agreement, so those with family members in Canada, will also be turned away at the border. I can't stress this enough. If you are being recruited at a local organization, wherever you are in the United States, or if it's family members that you have who are in the United States who think they can still cross over like the other months, it will not be possible at this time. They will be turned away at the border. There might be an exception to that rule if it's an unaccompanied minor, someone under the age of 18 who is alone, who is crossing the border to seek asylum at the U.S.-Canada border. They may be able to enter in through the United States. So again, I can't make it any more clear. There is no special program. There is no exception to the rule. Again, like I said, if you're not an unaccompanied minor, a child who is crossing the border, who's vulnerable, obviously will not be left at the border. But anyone else, no matter who you are, if you are coming to claim refugee status at the border, unfortunately, this will not be possible. Now, refugees who are already in Canada, that's a different story. You're already in Canada, so you've already crossed the border. If you haven't made your presence known to Canadian authorities, now would be a good time to do so. All those who have already put in their basis of claim form, who have already submitted their forms to immigration, please know that dates in hearing persons, those dates have been postponed. Your dates are going to be much later in the future. There will be no in-person hearings. All offices are closed, so you can't physically present yourself to an office. Please email, fax, send regular snail mail, or use e-post for all the documents that have to be submitted to the IRB. IRB meaning the Immigration Refugee Board. Just because there's COVID-19 and things are a bit more difficult, it doesn't mean that you would be exempt from those deadlines. Please exercise caution, seek legal counsel. Please get your forms in by mail, by fax, by e-post, or by email. So again, nothing is going to be happening in person. Everything is going to be rather done by another method of communication. So let's talk about tourist visas. So all those with a valid visiting visa or a valid visiting super visa, those parents who have super visas, you will not be permitted to enter Canada at this time. It's important to note that this kind of travel is considered leisure travel. So leisure travel, it's not considered essential travel. So at this time, you would not be permitted to enter into Canada. Despite having a valid visa, despite having a valid super visa, that's not what's going to get you permission to enter Canada. Travel is being very, very, very limited, like I explained earlier with the travel ban. So a person who has a visitor visa, however, would only be able to enter Canada through the US-Canada border, so a land crossing, and only if they fall into those who are exempt from the travel ban. So if you remember at the beginning of the video, I was explaining those who are exempt. Only those people would be able to enter. But if you're in another country trying to get on a plane to Canada, it simply cannot be done. Removals. Let's talk about removals. Those who were scheduled to be removed from Canada, all removals have been suspended as of March 17th, and that was for 3 weeks. So we're coming to the end of that. We're at the end of that now. So please be informed. Call the agent who's handling your case. If you have a lawyer, call your lawyer. It's not a given that you won't be removed, but it's not a given that you will be removed as well. It's your obligation to remain informed with all proceedings that are happening, especially where you're concerned. So all removals from Canada had been suspended, and the suspension, as of right now, you need to get informed because it was for 3 weeks originally. By removals, I want to be clear, this is what's known in common language as a deportation. So if you have a removal order or a departure order, please seek legal counsel. So by that, I mean what's commonly referred on the streets as deportation. Now, I want to talk about applications for permanent residency. All of those who are in the process of requesting permanent residence in Canada, this applies to you. As of now, there is no global expedited procedure or processing for applications that are currently in the queue. So what does that mean? Plainly, it means if you already submitted your application for permanent residency, there is no special program where it can go faster. If anything, because of COVID-19, things are going to get slower. Some visa offices are still open, still processing applications, and some visa offices, depending on where you are in the world, are completely closed for business. So there's nothing out there suggesting that there is expedited processing. If you're coming into contact with someone saying that they can make your application go faster because of a, again, special program, that's simply not true. There's no special program. There's no way to expedite it right now, other than what previously already existed, those exceptions, and you would need to seek legal counsel for that. There's no special program. There's no backdoor. There's no jumping the queue. If anything, trust me, things are being delayed because of COVID-19. And it wouldn't make sense anyways for things to be accelerated because of COVID-19. So beware of false information. Sometimes people mean well, but are not informed, so give false information. But sometimes too, there are scammers out there who are taking advantage of you. So if you've come across anything saying, pay this fee to this firm or this immigration consultant to jump the queue, that's not going to happen. Permanent residents, applicants who have already submitted their application and received what's called a confirmation of permanent residence. So you already received word that you've been accepted, you've received your confirmation of permanent residence, and you've received your permanent visa, but you weren't able to get everything together to travel before the travel ban. Your document then would still be valid right now. So what you can do is you can go on the IRCC web form submission and explain that because of COVID-19, you are unable to travel. You also have to inform them if your travel period elapsed, and if your confirmation of permanent residence, that documentation has expired. You really have the obligation here to contact IRCC via the web submission form. So you go on their website via the web submission form. You have to let IRCC know that you were not able to travel and the documentation expired, or that you will be unable to travel and that the documentation will expire by the time you can get traveled into Canada. And what IRCC will do is that they'll reopen the application and review within 90 days. The onus is on you. That means the burden is on you to inform IRCC. They won't know automatically that you've been prevented from traveling because of COVID-19, because again, under the travel ban, you could still use your confirmation of permanent residence and that documentation in your visa to travel to Canada. And so you would have to go to the airport and show that as proof. I want to mention though that a lot of airlines, I've seen various news reports, a lot of airlines are prioritizing people who are already Canadian citizens and permanent residents who've landed already in Canada. So you might not be able to get out on that first flight if you have your confirmation of permanent residence. And you might not even be able to leave your home. Wherever you are in the world, you might not be able to leave your home and to make that journey into Canada. So it is your responsibility to contact IRCC via the web submission form. Okay, international students. This message now is for international students. If you were already enrolled for studies in Canada and you had already been accepted by a designated learning institution, that means an institution where you can get a study permit to come into Canada, and you already made travel arrangements to come to Canada and study before all the travel restrictions were put into place, you can still attempt to enter Canada. And I use the word attempt because it doesn't mean that it's automatic. It doesn't mean that you're going to get to the airport and they're going to let you on the flight. But if you fulfill all those conditions, so you're already enrolled, already accepted by the institution, you already made travel arrangements to come to Canada, you already, got an apartment wherever you were going to stay, you can come in with all that documentation and identify yourself and your circumstances to the airline before boarding. Right now, if you have a valid study permit and you have a letter of introduction from IRCC, listen to me carefully. If you have a letter of introduction from IRCC and it's dated prior to March 18th, 2020, then you could still attempt to enter in Canada with your study permit. But again, like I said, with those who had a confirmation of permanent residence, there are reports of people being turned away when they're trying to board. So I can't stress it enough that you have to remain informed. I talked about study permits. I talked about visitor visas. I talked about confirmation of permanent residency, applications for citizenship, refugees. I talked about a lot of things in this short video. But you have to keep yourself informed because this information is changing day by day. This information can change tomorrow. It can change the day after tomorrow. Don't let the scammers change the information for you. You need to be informed. You need to visit official government websites. Contact a lawyer in your city, in your town, who can do a virtual consultation. That's still possible. Contact government officials. Don't get word of mouth information. Don't rely on people who are just forwarding things via WhatsApp, things who are just those Facebook links that have Canadian flags that say Government of Canada. If they're not official Government of Canada websites, double check the information on a Canadian government website. Also, emails. Be very wary of emails, because the title of the sender on the emails can say Government of Canada. Example, Government of Canada, we are refunding your permanent residency application due to COVID-19. And then you would go and click. The government doesn't send those kinds of emails. When you get an email from a sender that has an official sounding name, it could be banking information, it could be anything, click that sender information. Most times a bunch of numbers will come up at the bottom. It's not an official email. There are phishing scams going out there. Don't click links you don't know. Don't fall prey of people who are selling you a story that's too good to be true. We're in the midst of a crisis right now. I believe we will get through it. I believe immigration will start rolling once this crisis is past us. But right now, these are different times and different measures have been put into place. So please stay informed. Please stay safe. Please share the information. Share the links that I'm going to be dropping at the bottom of this video. Share the links. Share the information. Spread information. Don't spread the disease. Stay safe. Wash your hands and be blessed. So thanks for joining me. Anytime there are updates, I'll try my best to update either with official information on my Facebook page or my Instagram page, or else I'll come and do another video. Thanks for joining me.